Well, tonight's the night, folks. You're going to have 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts outside, and you're going to have a lot of wind here inside on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, a special Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Why is it special? Because we have, our own Prince Charming here, Dave Tolleris, to fill us in on exactly what's going to happen and when it's going to happen during the winter of 2025-2026. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is brought to you by, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Shop on Amazon using our referral link. And that referral link is on the description to this podcast on YouTube. It's very easy. Just click on the link to get you to Amazon. Buy whatever it is you're going to buy. Amazon throws us a little bit of coin, and we do mean little. And it does help to keep the live version of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast commercial free. And we appreciate very much those of you who have done that, shopping on Amazon via our referral link. And if you need a weather station or you want to get a weather station for that weather geek in your life, Tempest by WeatherFlow. It's revolutionary, and you can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. You can install it anywhere. It runs on solar power, and you can monitor it on your mobile device. The link for this is pinned to the top of the chat board, and it's also on the description of this podcast. Do you know what the coupon code is, Dave Tolleris?
No.
No?
What could it be?
Well, Joe Rayo will tell you what that coupon code is.
What is it, Joe?
The coupon code is Ruben Fairchild has just posted an interesting link about Dave Tolleris. No. It's 2025, autumn 2025. Autumn 2025.
Dave, somebody's calling. I said, do you know what you get if you use the coupon code?
Extra birthday cake?
No, you get even something better than that. What do they get, Joe?
You get 10% off anything that you may purchase or care to purchase with the folks over at.
What are you doing, Mister? I love Dave.
I'm just looking at. What? I'm just looking at the chat board here.
Oh yeah, that's already on fire. All right, good evening, everybody on the chat board, and those of you who are lurking in the background. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. This is a great night, by the way, not to lurk in the background, but get on the chat board and ask some questions. We will take some questions for those of you. And by the way, keep it civil, please. Not you, Dave, because you can't do that.
No.
But people on the chat board, keep it civil. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. Turn your notifications on so you don't miss us. And if you like the show, hit the like button. Okay, we're going to get right into it, okay? And I'm just going to start off. You and I were talking about this before the show started. I mentioned this several times going into over the last couple of weeks. It does seem to me that this autumn, and I think you probably could trace it back to starting from the last 10 days of August on, has evolved much differently than the autumns of, say, the past 5 or 6 years.
I agree with that. We've had a tremendous amount of blocking, and it keeps showing up at the high latitudes over Greenland, Baffin Island, Quebec. I mean, you can take a look at the upper air maps from October, and, there's one reason why October was fairly cold. That we had a pretty cold October, and, and then it disappeared right around Halloween, and it came roaring back again. And, it keeps this, and it's been there since September. I mean, even September, keep in mind how cool September was. Usually what happens is in August continues into September. So like September's become like August light. No, when we hit September 1st, boom, somebody turned off the switch. It got chilly and it became real autumn. So it's quite noticeable.
One of the guys on the chat board the other day, and I forgot about this, was last November, in the first few days of November, we were in the 80s across eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England with record highs. And you had a number of days. I would say probably over the last 5 or 6 years that it's been getting a little less every year with this sort of a summer extension. But this year clearly is different. And I just wonder if if that's the fact that it is different, does it make? Because I know you look at analogs and all. So doesn't it make a little bit harder for you to just try and find a couple of good analogs, or is it better that you just you blend a few different years in together?
Well, it's all half art and half science because you have to look at the upper air pattern. Of course, just because you have a cold autumn or nice autumn doesn't mean it's going to continue into January, February, March. There've been plenty of years where it looks like, ooh, it's going to get real exciting, and you have an early or like snow, let's say mid or late November, and then boom, the pattern falls apart by Christmas, and you blowtorch. So it's always something. It's never just one thing. It's half art and half science. And the problem is that there's so much information out there, you can almost get deluged by it. So you have to, shift through what's bullshit and what isn't. And that's a problem too. So
Joe liked that compound word you use, bull poo poo.
oh, okay. Well, bullshit.
I'm sure Joe. Come on, I got to keep this civil. YouTube gets mad at me if you start cussing.
I'm not cussing.
Is there any way?
That's explaining.
Is there any way, like the late night talk shows, Joe, that you can insert a beep or bleep?
Yeah, no, we're all. Listen, I've seen them use the. I've heard them use the F word, and I mean, we're not going to. Don't you dare do that, David. But,
No, I would never. I would never say Frankenstein ever.
Thank you. Okay, Joe, got a question? Get Dave going here.
All right.
Do you want me to? A question for Dave about this? I'm not really. I really, I just sit and then wait and listen to Dave as to how he comes up with an outlook for the next few weeks or even for the next few months in terms of the winter forecasts. I kind of shy away. People always ask me, what do I think for the upcoming winter season? And I say, well, it definitely looks like it's going to get colder than it's been the last few months, but
yeah,
that's about as much as I'm willing to say.
I did
a few years ago. In fact, I even made a presentation at the NWA conference in Birmingham, Alabama. This was back in 2011, and in fact, I came across this. I'm going to hold it up to the camera for everybody to see. I wrote an article called Moonstruck Meteorology, where I attempted to make a forecast for the upcoming winter using the motions of the moon and lunar cycles. And it on a scale of 0 to 10, the forecast that I issued in this particular report, it was about a 10-page report, on a scale of 0 to 10, it came out to be like a 4. It really did not work out the way I was hoping it was going to work out, but still it made for an interesting, presentation.
If somebody asks you, Joe, what you should do is use the quote from Groundhog Day by Bill Murray. You want to report about winter? I'll tell you about winter. It's going to be long. It's going to be gray. It's going to be cold. It's going to last you for the rest of your life.
Nice.
It's one of the great weather quotes of all time.
Okay, so let's dive into this. So
All right.
Let's start off with what's been going on now in the last couple of months. Are you getting any clues, but from what the weather what the weather may do?
And before Dave gets into his discussion, which I know everybody has been waiting with bated breath for, I will quote baseball sage Yogi Berra, who once noted that, quote, "It's tough to make predictions, especially about the future."
Yes,
exactly.
That's a great quote. Yes. Zen master Yogi Berra.
So what are you seeing right now in terms of what the patterns that are evolving that are going to lead you
definitely
down the road in the forecast?
I'm very bullish about December. I have been for a while. I'm very bullish about January. February is a changeable month. I'm not certain of February, and then March to me probably blow torches. That's what happened last year. We had December was on the East Coast. January, February was significantly below normal, and temperature wise. There was some snow, not a lot, but there was some. And then March blow torched. And I think that's probably what's going to happen here. The main difference, of course, is the La Nina is weaker and it's falling apart. There's a huge westerly wind burst going on in the Indian Ocean into Indonesia, which is driving warm water across the equator towards South America. It's going to wipe out the La Nina within the next 2-3 weeks. And then, and then we walk to the races once the La Nina is gone. So that's kind of different. Last year we had a La Nina that lasted most of the winter. This year, again, all the data shows it. The new European model came out today, and you'll see it. It has the La Nina gone by January. So, and I think that's great. So let's, we want to get started with the scare sale. Let's call it up.
Well, I could just say, going back to last year, especially for people that now that I live in the deep South, and the longer range winter forecast that people were putting out last year were awful. I mean, they weren't even close to being correct. I mean, January. Yeah, I mean, January was brutal here. It was really brutal, and I had snow cover on the ground for 2 weeks, which was great. Really was beautiful.
Yeah, remarkable. Yeah, give complete miss. Complete miss.
And then, of course, we
had
that the major Gulf
snowstorm.
I guess you could call it a 100-year snowstorm that happened.
Yeah.
Go ahead and dive in. Go.
Okay, so there's the outlook. We'll start here. We'll go to the next page. First, I want to start out with something about the GFS, just briefly here. This is from Ryan Mao on Twitter. The GFS is busted. It's become extremely worse in the last several weeks. It's significantly below normal what the European is performing. In addition to that, what's his name? Michael Lowry, who does a
Oh, darn. Hang on, folks.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
We're back. I'm sorry. We took one of those lovely little internet hits I was telling you about.
All right. So let me see here. Where are my tools if I can do this here? The highlight tool. Where is it? Maybe this. Yeah, here it is. Okay, that blue line there, that red line there, that is the Google DeepMind. And as you can see, it was the most accurate model by far. The GFS was actually one of the worst models out there. So that really impressed a lot of people with how good the Google DeepMind model was. That was like people were like, wow, it was a pretty amazing production, I guess is the right word here.
Have you been able to use it?
Let me see here to get rid of this. How to get rid of that marker? Yeah, I've been using the Google DeepMind marker a lot, actually. I've been using it quite a bit, and it's actually quite good. It really is a very, very good model. Hopefully I'm going to be using it again in the winter. I'm hoping. So we'll see. But it was quite good. Here's the intensity models. The Google DeepMind model was not that much better with the intensity, but it was much better with the hurricane track. And the other point here is that to show you how bad the GFS was this summer, this is the orange is the GFS versus the official National Hurricane Center track. Look way over on the right-hand side. Look at the gap between the orange and the black. That is the biggest gap since 2005.
Wow.
So the GFS did really badly this particular summer. Okay. So if you get to I posted this also, you can see this on the Facebook page and also on the website, Weather Risk website. If you read the discussion, this is the official forecast. It comes out mid-October. This is standard boilerplate La Nina. Every time La Nina, this is what CPC throws up. They did this last year. Same thing. Right. Okay. And the funny thing about it is that all this research is being done, and a lot of it's sponsored by NOAA and CPC, and they never use it. I just don't understand it. And to show you what the problem is here, this was last winter. Okay, this was 24, 25 on the left-hand side. See the temperatures for the winter? Came out October 15th of last year. Look at the right-hand side. That was the winter.
All below normal in the east and in the deep south.
Yeah, I believe that's known as a busted forecast, boys and girls. That's what
actually it busted. It was also below normal. In the middle and up in the
Yes.
northern plains, and it
Yes.
was, you know,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
sort of got the little part in the northern plains, but the rest of it,
That was a,
and in the southwest, and
yeah.
the rest of it was a disaster.
Yes, it was. Now, this is to show another slide here. I posted this before. This is the last 12, no, excuse me, the last 16, last 12, Climate Prediction Center forecast going back to 2013-14 on the left-hand side. And the right-hand side are the actual temperature anomalies. So what's important to notice here is that there have been 4 winters of the last 12 where the temperatures have either been normal or below normal. 2013-14 over the eastern United States and the Midwest, 2014-15, 2017-18, and last winter, 2000. That's about 1/3. 4 out of 12, that's a third. So they missed all 4 winters. They just consistently, well, and it's a matter of probability. And the climate is warming, so if you consistently go for a mild winter in the eastern United States,
you're going to be right most of the time.
Right, but at that point, you're not really forecasting. It's just monkeys on typewriters, just banging out something, and you're going to hit. You know, you can't always do probability forecasting because the extreme weather, the anomaly, the thing that hits you, whether it's the snowstorm in New Orleans or it's Katrina or whether it's Melissa, the extreme anomaly is where you have to forecast. And if you simply go by probabilities all the time, you're going to miss it. So that's kind of a pet peeve of mine. All right. Here's the CFS forecast, okay, and you can see the projections. The green dot there is where we are in January, and you can see by January, we are now at neutral conditions. Now, that was as of October 16th. The new one hasn't changed at all. This is the one here from the October IRI. Now, the IRI, International Research Institute, that 26 climate models there. Again, you can look at the green line or the purple line, which shows you the mean, and the La Nina is over by January. Okay, the vast majority of that model shows that. So, you know, I think that's correct. And this is the brand news came out this morning, a European model. Now, the red line is the current projection, and the black line is the one from October. And the thick lines are the ensemble mean. So, as you can see, and I call up my mark here so we go on the same page. Okay, so this right here is November. And then this is December. We're still in it, and this is January. And it's over. So what happens is you can see the peak, and according to the European model, but sometime here in December, early November, late December, sometime in mid or late November into December, it's going to be weakening. And given the wind bursts that we're seeing there developing in the Indian Ocean and Indonesia, that's probably correct. And then it rapidly weakens. So this La Nina is falling apart. Okay, so. All right, so there's that.
So there's that.
Okay, let's get through. Okay, there we go. Good. All right, so now we go to here. So now, weak La Ninas are not the same thing as moderate or strong La Ninas. The weak La Nina pattern is this, which is actually pretty favorable. You can see there's some ridging in the North Atlantic by Iceland and Greenland. There's a pretty big ridge, and you get a lot of cross-polar flow in weak La Ninas. And your mean trough is on the East Coast or the Appalachian Mountains. It's not in the southwestern states. It's not in Canada or the Rockies. So weak La Nina pattern is not a bad pattern, even if the weak La Nina holds on into February. So that's one of the reasons why we had a January, February, it stayed weak all the way through. But suppose La Nina falls apart. Let's assume the models are correct. La Nina's gone for January, February, and March. What does that look like? Well, they're going back to 1950. December through February. The one on the bottom right is January through March. And look at the temperatures. When there is no La Nina, we have neutral conditions. That's your temperature bias. That's a cold winter. That's a cold winter. It's not severely cold. It's not the end of the world cold, but that's persistent cold. That's what that is. Okay, so that's really good. In terms of precipitation, okay, the one on the left is December through February. It's a little drier up in the Ohio Valley, but not much, a little bit. And the one on the right is January through March. It's a little dry in upstate New York, Ohio Valley, actually, and looks a little wetter for your area there, Joe, Mr. Chiaffi, in the northern Georgia and Tennessee. So that's what that looks like. Okay, Let's talk about the October snow cover. And the reason why we do that is because there is a connection with Siberian snow cover, the advance in October, and what it means for the Arctic oscillation in December, especially January, February, and March. So the faster the snow builds up and the more it covers, the bigger the impact it has. Okay.
I noticed, by the way,
So this,
I had noticed, by the way, at least when I was watching through mid-month, and then I kind of got distracted. But the western flank of the Siberian snow cover growth was ample,
yes, yep,
where it's been lacking in prior years.
that's correct.
And my understanding is, that western flank is what that western flank is what really matters.
It can, yes, it does matter. So if we, here's the latest, this was as of, actually, oh, this is the wrong one. I posted the wrong one. I can't believe that. Oh my God. I had the updated slide here. I posted the wrong one. What a moron. Anyway, this is the one. The other one I want to show you was this one here. This is the Eurasian snow cover anomaly. So this is the cover of, and you can see the last several dots, the last several winters, we've been slightly above normal. And as long, again, that's an important sign. As long as it's above normal, that helps produce early cold air. So the cold air gets very strong. And when you have cross-polar flow, you actually have enhanced cold air. So there's a difference. In other words, when you have a below normal snow cover in Siberia, your cross-polar flow is not nearly as strong. But when you have it early and building up, you have a much bigger source of cold air. So when you have cross-polar flow, you end up getting bigger, longer lasting, more impressive Arctic blasts. Mm-hmm. So that's why this is important. Okay. And you can see we ended up about normal or slightly above normal. Okay. So that's pretty good. All right. Now, these are teleconnections. We talked about that in the past. The EPO, the PNA, those are the two on the Pacific. Eastern Pacific Oscillation. Again, it runs in a positive phase and a negative phase. If you like cold and snow in the east, you want that to be in the negative phase. The PNA is your West Coast ridge, positive, or trough if it's negative. On the Atlantic side, we have the Arctic Oscillation. Negative means more blocking, cold air outbreaks. And then positive means the cold air stays more up in Canada. And the cold air shocks are much weaker. And then you have your NAO. Again, when it's negative, more chance for phasing with the jet streams on the East Coast. And when it's positive, it's hello, Midwest, winter weather, nothing for the East Coast. So those are generally what happens with those teleconnections. There's another teleconnection out there. Okay, and a lot of people are talking about this teleconnection for this winter. Now, this is not new, but it's not well known. It's called the TNH pattern, Tropical Northern Hemisphere. Okay, in the winter of 2013-14, which was a severely cold winter, this was the pattern we had. And it can lead to, as you can see, severely cold winters like we had 2013-14 and 14-15. Those are the back-to-back winters, and that pattern was anchored by a huge blob of extremely warm ocean water temperatures in the northern Pacific, known as the blob. I mean, right. If you're a weather nut, I'm sure you remember talking about that. It lasted for 2 years.
I want to ask you about. I want to specifically ask you about that.
Yes.
I mean, unless I misread, which is always possible. I saw something the other day talking about the water temperatures in the northern Pacific that they've been cooling.
Slightly, yes.
Slightly, so it is slight. Okay, because I mean, yeah. They didn't specifically say anything about okay, so they're cooling, but that still could be above normal, above the average.
Right.
Okay, right. So all right, I just want to clarify that.
That's correct.
And for those, what I'm getting at with respect to that East Pacific Oscillation or the negative EPO, which I have said, I've said it many times. Give me a negative EPO, and I'll take my chances with everything else. When it comes to
you got to have your cold air first. If you don't have your cold air first, it doesn't make a difference.
Right, and everybody gets all bent out of shape over the NAO, the NAO, and the NAO. And in recent years, it's not that we haven't had the NAO, but every time we did have it, we had so much of it that it just suppressed everything way to the south. I mean, that happened a couple of times last year.
All right. So this is the TNH pattern. And like I said, the TNH pattern usually does not bring about major snowstorms. Instead, it brings a lot of them. For example, in the 2013-14 snowstorms in the eastern United States, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, New England, there were about 16 to 18 light to moderate snow. 3 inches, 2 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, but there was no big giant snowstorm. Okay, so that happens a lot with the PNH pattern. Let me show you what it looks like. This is a schematic. This is from the 2013-14. Now you look at that at first glance, you go, oh, that's a PNA pattern. That's positive PNA. No, boys and girls, it is not, because the PNA pattern is on the West Coast, and look where the positive anomaly is. The red is the positive anomaly. It's in the Northeast Pacific by the Gulf of Alaska, and notice how it extends into the western half of the Arctic, the Pacific side of the Arctic. Okay, that's your cross-polar flow. Those are your lines bringing the Arctic air from Siberia over the pole down into the central and eastern U.S. Now, there is a ridge also as well, but the ridge is just off the southeast coast in the southwest Atlantic. So what happens is the lows come out of Texas and they track through Kentucky to Virginia. Okay, and if the ridge is flat like that, then you end up getting snow and ice. Sometimes the TNH pattern can be a little further to the west, in which case you end up with a Ohio Valley, New England pattern, because that depends on the position of the ridge. But that's the general schematic of what the TNH pattern looks like. Okay. Now, the other thing is the polar vortex. When you have a very strong ridge like that, the polar vortex often plunges southward, dropping from Hudson's Bay down through Lake Michigan or Lake Superior or Lake Huron. Okay, we had that happen twice last winter. And that's when you get to severely cold outbreaks. And sometimes, of course, that pushes the Arctic front to the south. Hello, Gulf Coast snowstorm. Remember last winter? That's what produced it. Okay, so that's what the TNH pattern does. So that's just a schematic of it. Now let's take a look at the 2013-14 sea surface temperatures and see what we can find. So the one on the upper left there, that's December, and then the one the bottom on the right is January, and the one on the bottom is February. Notice the big giant red blob there, south of the Gulf of Alaska. All right, it's not off the British Columbia coast. There's a gap there. It's not on the California or Oregon coast. It's west of that. It's south of Alaska in the Northeast. That's the blob. And that huge pool of warm ocean water temperatures anchored with a La Nina, you can see the La Nina off the coast of South America, anchored the TNH pattern and produced a severely cold winter. That's what caused it. Now, the next winter, and this is what the temperatures should go through it. This is what it looked like in case you forgot. These were the mean temperatures. I mean, it was brutal.
Right. So anything, by the way, you can't see it really at home, but the first shade of yellow is where the zero line is, where it's normal. Right. So anything that's green and then extends toward the blue and purple, that's all below normal. And yeah, I mean, it looks like 3/4 of the country was below normal.
Yeah, everything east of the Rockies was like, yeah, okay, and like Minnesota, Wisconsin, there were the winter in northern Minnesota. That's some mighty impressive cold air. That doesn't happen all the time. Okay, and just to show you what it looked like, one of the big Arctic outbreaks, January 7th, 2014. Okay, and they got down to, you can see the sub-zero readings there, all the gray here, and single digits. And the other headlines, Windy City, pull out, the vortex drops the temperatures, the wind chill to minus 62. It got down to like 1 or 0 degrees in Atlanta. It was just it was an amazing outbreak. Okay, just the headline. So now the winter after that was the same type of thing, another cold winter. But that was a positive QBO. We have a negative QBO. And that was a weak El Nino. We have a La Nina. So the 2014-15 winter is not a great match. But the pool of warm water produced the same positive TNH. And you said it was cold. Not as cold as 13-14, but it's pretty cold.
So you're saying that, that's what we have at the moment.
No, let's hear it. Okay, this is the sea surface temperature map of 14-15. And here, the warm water here was right up against the west coast of North America. Not in the Northeast Pacific, but again, the warm blob is essentially there. So these are the sea surface temperatures right now, as of October 21. And of course, you can update this as well. Now, again, there's been a little bit of cooling off of Vancouver, the Alaska Panhandle, but the main pool of incredibly warm water is still centered let me call my marker, right here. That's the pool. That's the number for the plumber, right there. All right? And that's what, there's La Nina. So as long as that stays in there, the North Pacific is really warm, then the argument is that's going to set up a potential positive TNH pattern to make it a really cold winter for December and January, maybe into February. That's the theory. That's the working concept behind it. All right. Okay, so let me clear this out and we go on here.
We should note, by the way, that the broad scale pattern is one thing. The short range pattern is something else.
Totally different.
Totally different. Okay, so you can have all of this, and it's like this is not none of this means that it's a slam dunk for anything.
Right. It just loads the dice.
Right.
It loads the dice. Are you more likely to get a base hit with 2 men on base, nobody out, or with 2 strikes on you and it's 2 outs? I mean, which is more likely? Same thing.
Right.
So the QBO, okay, people, you've talked about it, briefly go into it. It's a level of air at the top of the atmosphere along the equator, the very top of the atmosphere, almost at the edge of outer space. And then blows like it goes from east to west for like 12 to 18 months. Then it goes neutral, then it goes west to east again. So, that oscillation is important because it helps determine the overall weather patterns. So right now the QBO is in the easterly phase, as you can see. And it's strongly negative. It's around minus 24, 25. So in all the winters where the QBO has been minus 18 or lower for the winter, and you get those numbers, you can see them here. That was a tremendous winter. 79, 80, that was a great southern mid-Atlantic winter. 2005, 2006, everybody likes that one. 14, 15, 17, 18 was a great and cold winter. 21, 22, and 23, 24. Okay, when you look at all the negative QBOs here, those, and you average them out as a 500 millibar map, that's what you get. And again, the orange color there is a huge block in Greenland. In northern Quebec, Canada. And that's that. We've seen that map for most of October. October. And then blue is the negative anomaly off and on the East Coast. I mean, that's a pretty awesome looking freaking map. That's a schematic. That doesn't suck. It beats a stick in the eye. Okay?
Right.
So that's what that looks like. Now, here's something new, which I've added. Research, again, you look at December, January, February, March. We have right now, encircled in red, a high solar easterly QBO combination of the atmosphere from 1900 to 2014. So this is quite a lot. This is over 100 years worth of data. When you do that, you end up getting these kinds of weather patterns. So December, I don't know if you can see it when I post the final update, I'll blow this up, but you can see a lot of blocking in Greenland where the dark red is. That's blocking positive anomaly December, January. Now, once we get to February, the blocking goes away, and we end up getting a more of a positive NAO, and February is kind of and then March is a blowtorch. We're not getting any cross-polar flow at all. March is back to normal, even slightly above normal. So again, these are the different 4 combinations. Low solar easterly QBO, high solar easterly QBO. So these are the different combinations that you can have. And they all mean different things. So and you can see what the impact of. But that's what we're looking at right now. And in fact, when you look at the new European climate model, which just came out today, okay, here's the December one and January one. See the block in December over Greenland, Northeast Canada? See a monster block?
Right.
That's December. That's that up here. That's the December map. This is January. See the block in Greenland? The huge ridge off in the northern Pacific, okay, positive TNH pattern. That's positive TNH pattern. That's January. It's the same freaking map. You see you can see the big red blob in the Pacific. There it is. Pretty amazing. February, the pattern breaks down, the blocking is gone, it begins to warm up, and then February and March is a blowtorch. Play ball.
Well, I guess most people wouldn't mind that if we wind up getting, a cold, if the winter starts early and then quits at the end of February. I don't think too many people would complain. But
yeah, I got the idea that maybe perhaps we kick off the winter season in January with, too much blocking and maybe very cold temperatures, but a lot of the storms, will people will be banging their heads against the wall, the winter weather lovers, when the heavy snows fall over North Carolina or Virginia Beach and those areas. But then, Dave,
You're just saying that to make me feel good, Joe.
But if you're correct in that the ridge in the southeast starts to flex its muscles and starts pushing northward,
that would be good for
push
you
the
guys.
storm track northward, and maybe we would start getting into a better or more favorable situation for snow during February before it warms up in March.
Yes, yeah, that's exactly right. So that February track might not be good for me, but for northern Mid-Atlantic and New England and the Ohio Valley, that February track is pretty good. So, all right. The other thing is Arctic sea ice. When we measure it two different ways. You can see on the map, if you look closely, maybe you can't see it, but if you go to the site, you'll see it. There's an orange line there which shows the normal anomaly, okay, where sea ice should be on November 2nd. And what you see is that in the Pacific means a strong polar vortex, which means a positive Arctic oscillation for the winter. But if it's below normal in Greenland and the Atlantic side, it correlates to having a weaker polar vortex, which means a negative AO. And as you can see, the ice is way below normal in and around Greenland and Iceland.
But it's also I'm sorry, the western flank of the ice apparently is above normal.
Right. Okay. So that combination and the below normal in the Atlantic side of the Arctic favors a negative AO and a weak polar vortex. Okay. So my summary, and it'll be like the file will come out in next week or something. Well, November 24, but I may issue it sooner than that. I disagree strongly with the NOAA forecast, CPC. I don't agree with it at all. Even the weak La Nina continues. The climatology, weak La Nina events, as well as the upper patterns, do not support a mild winter across the eastern CONUS. And if the weak La Nina breaks down and the ENSO it moves to neutral, then it's going to be a more favorable signal for normal and snowier than normal winter. There's a significant chance of severe winter conditions at some point in 2024, 25. Excuse me, I should say 25, 26. I forgot to change the date there. I believe that this is a significant chance of extreme cold and stormy conditions for a significant portion, again, 25, 26. I think there is a possibility of something of a teenage pattern like we saw in 13, 14 and 14, 15, not wrong date there, 15, 16. Again, the snow cover buildup that was as of October in Siberia was pretty good. It ended about normal. And finally the go birds. Now, one last thing I want to talk about here, there's been a new teleconnection which has been discovered. I know there's a lot of weather weenies and weather nuts and weather perverts out there. So I thought I'd talk about this one. This North American teleconnection, which is linked to the Siberian snow cover. So again, these are the four main teleconnections we know about, but this is the new one, and this is what it's called, the ABNA. And what it does is it establishes its cross-polar flow. So the red represents positive anomalies over Siberia and Alaska, and the blue represents negative anomalies covering all the eastern United States, and you can see in central Siberia and northeastern China. That's what the overall pattern looks like. What happens is the snow cover expands. You can see on the left, the blue colors, that's the climatology of the snow cover as it expands in October and November. And the change in the snow cover in these particular boxes on the right-hand side are what we look at to measure whether the ABNA is going to be positive or negative. If it's positive, you're off to the races. So that's what we measure. And in November, as we are in November now, the issue is heavy snow in Siberia, eastern Siberia, Manchuria, north of Korea, and you see the orange area in central Russia, below normal snowfall in November in central Russia towards Ukraine and Moscow and Volgograd and the Volga River Basin. That's an indication that you're going to get a positive ABNA when that happens. Another way of looking at it is the sea surface temperatures. This is what you want to see with an ABA. November, December, January on the left, December, January right. You can see the warm water in the Eastern Pacific around the base, around cold water off of China. That's called the horseshoe. Warm, and then when you get that, that also helps lock in the ABNA pattern. There are some, now here, this is just a comparison. On the left-hand side, you can see the difference between this pattern and the P&A pattern. The P&A pattern, as you know, is a, but again, you can compare that to why that's not the same thing as an ABNA pattern. On the second one, you have the Arctic oscillation here. And again, here's the AO. As you can see, it brings in negative anomalies here, the positive in Greenland, but nothing in Siberia, Alaska, no connection. The ABA is, again, this big bridge here, which brings over the cross-polar flow, and it brings in the cold air for a much larger area. The NAO, huge blocking in Greenland, right? And you get your negative anomaly of the eastern United States, but nothing in connection to Siberia or Alaska. But again, here, the ABNA is that big connection here, which sets up the huge trough when it sets up that way. And this is the North Pacific oscillation, the same sort of thing. So those are just different schematics. So I just want to show you what it looks like. It is a real teleconnection, as you can see. And then let me just find out my eraser here, get rid of these things here. You can move on. Okay, and then the last point here, I'm just going to bring on. Okay, and then I think that was my last slide. And this is just a schematic of what happens in November. You look at the ECDP, which is the Eastern Siberia snow cover, the dipole. Who's got more snow cover? Who's got less snow cover? There's often a buildup of excessive rainfall in Vietnam and Indonesia, which helps trigger the tropical forcing, which causes the pattern to explode, and you get this huge setup of positive anomaly going from Siberia through Alaska and northwest Canada, and that sets up your prolonged cold and winter. You can see the blue showing up here in central and eastern United States and in Canada. So this is called the ABNA pattern. I'll be watching it this winter to see how it shapes up. It's something new. I thought it'd be interesting to talk about, so I just thought I'd mention it so you could follow along, and we'll see how it plays out.
All right.
So that's the presentation, folks.
Hang in there. Hold on. First of all, let me just. Okay. I just want to acknowledge Joseph Carr, Kenny Musey, and the chairman Scott Briller, all hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you very much. And I've got some questions. We'll start with Scott's question. He said New York City, as measured at Central Park, had back-to-back winters of 50-plus inches in 2013-14 and 14-15. What long-range factors would you look at with respect to chances for heavy snow?
Well, the TNH winter pattern. And again, if you look at that winter, the 13-14, was that the one you mentioned?
13-14 right. And 14-15.
There was one really big storm in February 2014. It was a big East Coast storm. It went over to rain on the coastal cities, but heavy snow inland. But most of those storms were like 4, 5, 6, 8-inch snows in New York and New Jersey and up towards Connecticut. They weren't monster snows. You were just getting hit all the time. So that's what I anticipate, this kind of winter happening. Now, again, maybe if La Nina breaks down, because in that winter, the La Nina lasted all winter long. So if the La Nina breaks down in January, suddenly things get really, really active and really, ominous in terms of winter weather and storms and colds for January. So, but that's how I see developing. I think it's going to be a lot of moderate snowstorms, but if La Nina breaks down in January, things are going to be very different.
Tom Contino, I saw, had a question, and of course now I can't find it. So Tom, if you yes, I know it's tragic because he's been drooling for you to come on the show. So if you could repost your question, then I will pass it along. So I'm gonna Joe, you're gonna play with Joe. You play along with me on this. I'm gonna call out a couple of cities. So you tell me, Dave, below and above temperatures, below and above snowfall. Okay, just sort of do a round robin. So
Okay.
I'll go first, and then Joe, you follow. So let's start with Boston.
Um, Near normal snowfall, below normal temperatures.
Okay,
Joe,
well, I'll throw out what probably is most interesting to most of the people on the chat board. New York City.
Yeah. Um, at least normal snowfall. It ended up being above, and the temperatures will be below normal through
okay.
February. And then March, like I said, low torches. It looks that way to me.
Uh, I'm going to mention. I'll put them in a package: Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Erie, Pennsylvania, Cleveland. The big lake effect
Sure.
towns. So what would you get? What would you guess? Because there have been years where we've had snowy winters along the coastal plain, and the lake effect is sort of eh.
Well, the thing is, what here is that if we do get severe cold, then the lake effect is really going to pile up.
Right.
That's the thing. So if we get severe cold, those areas could end up with above normal snowfall, just like on the East Coast or in the Tennessee Valley, because the lake effect is powered by the extreme cold. So I like those areas getting blasted by a really good lake effect and end up with a pretty snowy winter. I think that's the correct idea.
I got Tom Contino's question, and then we'll come back to this. Tom wants to know what do the Euro monthlies look like right now?
Well, I posted them earlier in the discussion. So, Tom, if you saw the video, you can go back. And this is, I'll go just show you what it looks like here. There you go. So December looks cold and stormy, monster block in Greenland and Northeast Canada. And then you can see January looks more of the same, looks very stormy, positive TNH pattern setting up. And you can see the trough bringing the cold air, plunging it way south. That looks, so December, January looks good. February changes, it breaks down. February is where those Ohio Valley states, those cities you mentioned, Joe, could end up getting big snow, New York, Boston, and maybe not that great for south of D.C. and the Tennessee Valley. And then March is a blowtorch for everybody.
Okay. Joe,
March
you got
play
another?
ball.
Do you have another city for Dave?
Let's talk about Philadelphia. Philadelphia seems to have been in recent years in kind of a snow drought. What do you think about Philly this year, Joe? Dave?
Well, two things. One, I think they're going to do pretty good to get out of the snow drought this year. And two,
We'll see. We'll see.
I got one for you. How about Chesterfield, Virginia?
no snow and temperatures record warmth.
All right, so do me, Western. I'm in the southern portion of the Western North Carolina mountains, North Georgia. Last year,
I think you'll do going to really pretty good here. You get these Arctic blasts coming down, you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine. I think your winter is December and January, not February.
After last year, I'm totally okay with that because when it gets cold here, it gets cold. Okay, and when you're at elevation cold, it just feels different. I've already I've gone below zero. I've been here 5 years now. This will be my fifth winter. And I've gone below zero on 3 out of the, for at least one day in the wintertime. And on one of those winters in the last few years, it was multiple days where I'll go below zero for lows. I even had days where you get out of the 20s. So it was
impressive
last year. So yeah, it is cold. How about Jake would like to know about somewhere in the Midwest? Let's talk about Chicago.
Well, the Bears are looking pretty good. Oh, you meant the okay. Yeah. I don't see any reason why Chicago is not going to have a cold and snowy winter. I think they'll be Chicago. I think actually could do quite well in February. I think Chicago did quite well in February and maybe in early March. I mean, if that ridge is Chicago may not be, but February we're in really particular February. But I like Chicago being cold and at least normal snowfall, if not above.
Can you dig for Michael Azara wants to know? Now he's going back in time here. So the type of weather pattern in January and February of 1978 that produced all those big winter storms like the Cleveland blizzard, and the blizzard of '78 in the Northeast.
Yeah. Well, that was not a positive TNH pattern. It may have been an ABNA, Asian Bering Sea North America pattern. The chart clearly shows that winter was one of those winters, and that's why that winter was locked in the whole time. So that's the 95, 96 was one of those winters. 93, 94 was one of those winters that just locked in, and it stayed that way for most of the winter. So that's what that was. That's the type of pattern it was, ABNA. And we had all the blocking and a lot of cold, and the storms just never stopped coming.
All right.
And I think the 95, 96 was a weak La Nina. I'm not sure about 77, 78. I have to look at that and see.
All right, one more here. Fyodor Ledkovsky would like
not
to
that bum.
Yeah, no,
Just kidding.
stop. Be nice. He'd like to know, since we talked about the Euro monthlies, now he's asking about the Euro weeklies and the GFS ensemble extended for December. They seem as bullish as you are. And I'll throw in that I didn't go far enough, but I was looking at the fabulous CFS model,
Right.
which we know what that acronym actually stands for. But it actually, the other day when I looked at it on the sixth week, which was about the second week of December, and being at it's out 6 weeks, it showed a nice looking, trough in the east, ridge in the west, big negative anomaly on the map, which, when you go out that far, you don't often see, deep blue negative anomalies. I think on a recent run I looked at it, it backed off a little bit on that. But anyway, so he's asking about the Euro weeklies.
Yeah, let me take a look at it right now. Let's switch over here to North America and heights here. So, the Euro weeklies, there is if you go, at the end of November, there's a extremely strong positive anomaly over Greenland and Baffin Island, which is a negative NEO. And that stays that develops and stays that way almost all through December. There continues to be hint of something around December 8th or 9th or 10th on the East Coast. So overall, it looks, the
December weeklies kind of match the monthlies. So, there you go.
Hey,
and of course, the thing is, the monthlies only come out once a month. So what you want to do is you want to use the weekly, the European weekly now, and some of the private sites that you subscribe to come out every day. Some sites they come out every couple of days, so it depends on which one you subscribe to, how much you want to pay for it. But they come out every day, and you can see the progress, how it's evolving over time. So and sometimes sometimes by the time you get to the month, it looks like oh my God, that's going to be the monthly model at the beginning of the month totally wrong. That's just turned out to be Bravo Sierra. And then sometimes it ends up being correct because you can see it developing on the weekly model. So, that's the game you have to play.
Hey, Joe Rayo.
Miss Balroy.
I'm sorry, Joe. Ruben Fairchild is having a meltdown on the chat board. I don't know if you've noticed.
I've noticed that. But anyway, I want to ask Miss Spallerite's question. She's saying it's clear that you guys are very biased to the East Coast. Why bother with this show?
Now, because anybody does live in the East Coast isn't worth talking to. That's why.
She's in the Central Plains.
Well, again, anybody who doesn't live on the East Coast isn't worth talking to. It's just pretty obvious.
Stop. Be nice. Come on.
Oh, God, please.
Be nice, Dave.
Okay. All you have to do is ask. Actually, to answer the question, I do a lot of weather forecasting for the Midwest and the Plain States. At least half my business is involved with agriculture in the Plains and the Midwest. Okay. So to answer your question, if this upper air pattern develops like I think, very cold winter, okay, not that much snow at the beginning, but later on when the cold pattern breaks down and we shift towards a warmer pattern in the second half of the winter, that actually ends up producing a lot of late season snowstorms for the central and upper plains, the upper Midwest, which continue into March and maybe even into early April. So for that area, you're looking at a very cold first half of the winter with not that much snow, but the second half. So, yes. All you had to do was ask me. I would have told you. Trust me.
Okay.
So.
And trying to think if there's any other. New England has been, the last few winters in New England have not been especially kind for snow lovers there.
No,
You
it
got
has.
to,
It
you
has
got
not been
to,
great for. No, it hasn't.
yeah, you got to think that this is going to be, if this type of pattern evolves this way, that this should be really good for them,
Yeah, yeah,
snow
yeah. I
wise.
agree with that. And for that guy who wants to know about the Mohawk Valley, I mean, if the air, depending on where you are, but if the air mass is this cold and we get these big Arctic outbreaks, you're going to have a lot of frequent snow showers and snow squalls. And again, once you get into February, and the ridge develops over the southeastern states, the Mohawk Valley is going to end up getting hit just like the Ohio Valley. It's the same climatology. We see all the time low pressure areas bringing snow to Chicago and Indianapolis and Detroit and Cleveland and Pittsburgh and Sirius and Binghamton and the Mohawk Valley. And that's the same storm track because the climatology. So, yeah, relax, guy. You're going to be fine.
Joe, you got any final thoughts, questions?
No, or the eastern part of the country, but again, if anyone had the opportunity to ask a question about their specific area, like Ms. Ballerite, she did eventually get the answer, I guess, because she said, "Thanks, Dave. I tried to ask you, but you dissed me." But maybe it's just because Dave got so into his explanations, and he's not really looking at the chat board, so to speak.
No, I don't get a chance to look at that much.
Relying mostly on Joe and myself to relay these questions.
And it's scrolling, it's scrolling by at 100 miles an hour. So I gotta roll back and read through them to find where the questions are. Then I lose them because I have to go, bring it back to real time. So it's a little. If we missed your question, I'm sorry, but it's hard to manage a show when you're producing it and hosting it, or co-hosting it, I should say, and dealing with all the technical crap, or trying to make sure that we stay on the internet, don't lose a signal.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, I Josh, I kid around with you. I love you almost as much as I love my laundry, and you're always welcome to be on this show anytime you'd like.
Well, hell, the same thing. You do your laundry once a week, and I take a shower once a week. So come on, what do you want?
Well, you should only shower in months that have bees in them. So, in November is a month where you should shower.
Okay, well that's good. That clears that up for me.
Yeah, I thought so.
But that was good. That's good strategy. That's good advice.
It is. You want to give yourself a plug for the Eagles before you say goodbye? Before we say goodbye?
Everybody knows they're the cream of the NFC, and Howie Roseman is a genius. And he just can't. I don't know why anybody picks up the phone. Howie Roseman calls, and he just rips off the latest player like he did for Miami Dolphins. Why do you even pick up the phone? Like, just say, "Oh shit, it's Howie Roseman." Hang up the phone because he's just going to seal you blind. I don't know what the. This is rocket science. Just hang up the phone. Howie Roseman's calling. Anyway.
All right, one last weather question. Go ahead, Joe. You go. You talk.
Couple of things before we sign off. Number one, and I know Kristen Goff has been asking since almost the start of the show, because we really revved things up and got up to 100 likes quite early in the show, and she's been putting the bell icon up there waiting for the bell ring. So this is for you, Kristen. We are now up to 139 likes, so thank you.
Woo, baby, for November. Not bad.
And Brandon Doherty and Frank Scalera both hitting the tip jar tonight, in addition to those who hit it earlier. Thank you for that.
And the other thing I just wanted to note is the fact that we don't want to forget the fact that we do have a sharp cold front that's going to be moving through here before midnight, and for a few hours around the time of the frontal passage, we're probably going to be talking about winds gusting to 45 to 50 miles per hour.
Yep.
I know that they had a high wind watch in effect yesterday, and we're suggesting 60 mile per hour gusts. Don't overlook the fact that when we have these weather fronts move on through, that in a few spots you may very briefly get high wind velocities just like that, up to 60. Although generally speaking now, that's still nothing to sneeze at. we may still see some power outages, some tree limbs coming down. So be sure to make sure that if there's anything that's readily able to fly around, that put it someplace where the wind can't get at it. I know we're also still under a marginal risk for severe weather across much of, especially from the New York City area on north. And there actually are, up toward the Albany area, some spots on the radar that show that there could very well be low top convection. So don't be surprised if you hear a rumble of thunder or see a flash of lightning between now and midnight tonight. And tomorrow, well, after some early clouds, we should clear out. But as much as tonight is a mild night by the standards of early November, with temperatures in the upper 40s to around or even above 50, and it was a mild day today. Newark got to 70 degrees. Tomorrow, much different with the cold air advection, northwesterly winds. Many places will be stuck in the mid and low 50s. Winds still rather gusty out of the northwest at around 30 miles an hour. That'll probably make it feel like it's in the 40s. So quite a different story, quite a different character of a day tomorrow as opposed to what we had out there today. And then a nice warming trend again for Friday, and especially so on into the weekend. The weekend we may be back into the 60s.
Until the cold front hits on Sunday night or Monday. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Not much of next week's going to be cold, all the way down into northern Florida, probably.
I know somebody asked two questions I wanted to mention here. Somebody asked me about the MEI, less snow. Asked me about the MEI last year. I was high on it. I used it a lot. I did. It turned out to be that index not as reliable as I thought. So I'm not using it. I'm kind of discounting it this year. So that's why I'm not using it. It turned out to be not as viable. I thought when the MEI collapsed, the La Nina would end sooner than it did. It did not happen. So that getting stuck there. Yes, but if you look at the new projections on the MJO, it does advance into phase 6 and 7. And what's happening is when the IOD, the Indian Ocean Dipole, if you look at that map here, let me call it up here 1 second for the oceans. Let's see if I call up my ocean map. Here we go. This is old, but you can see there's a lot of cold water in the western half of the Indian Ocean. That's a negative IOD. And what that does is most of the summer, when you have really warm water in the Indian Ocean, the MJO is kind of gets stuck there. But now that it's breaking down, you're getting this uniform, more cold water showing up. The MJO was able to break out of that cycle and move into different phases. So it does look like it is going to advance eventually into phase 7 and phase 8 in December. And again, phase 8 in December is cold and stormy. So I do think it's going to get into phase 8 by the time we get to December. So that's another reason why I'm kind of bullish about December as well. So there's all these different factors showing up, but I do think the MJO is on to move. It's going to break out and can advance. And then by the time we get to like I said, December 1st, it should be in or around phase 8. And then phase 1 and even phase 2 for December. And those are all cold and stormy signals for the eastern U.S. So that's another reason why I'm bullish about the MJO. So that's something else to watch.
I remember the winter of 89-90, which almost turned out to be non-existent after the first of the year. In
That's right, complete collapse. That's right.
But the interesting thing about that I remember was that it was an abnormally mild second half of November. In fact, we even had a severe weather outbreak, which unfortunately led to fatalities at a school in upstate New York with severe thunderstorms rolling on through. And then all of a sudden, after a front came by, it got very cold. We had the snowstorm
on Thanksgiving
in 1989. Yes. And then it got very cold for December, one of the coldest Decembers we've had ever, at least in recent years. And then again, things warmed up very rapidly. But you're alluding, to Dave, about how December could turn out to be, rather cold and wintry. And my question would be: do you think it's possible that before we get into that pattern, that for the let's say the week or 10 days before, let's say right around Thanksgiving or the last 10 days of November, that we might have a surge of unseasonably mild air before the cold air comes rolling in early in December?
Yes, that's true. I mean, and you can see that showing up. We have a trough on the west coast and a bit of a ridge over the southeastern states. That's generally mild pattern, but we also have this massive blocking showing up on November 20th over Greenland and Baffin Island. So what that does is that suppresses the southeast ridge. So it's mild, but it's not a blowtorch. If that block in Greenland is not there on November 20th and November 25, then the ridge is going to explode much higher and you get a much warmer pattern. But because the blocking looks like it's going to be there, it suppresses the ridge, and you end up getting low pressure tracking essentially west, southwest, east, northeast, as opposed to, let's say, going from Texas to Ohio. So you end up getting this flat pattern here. And again, during the winter months, that sucks. But that was a possibility, Joe. But as long as we have that big block showing up in Greenland and northeastern Canada in late November, that ridge in the southeastern states is going to stay flat, and you end up getting a mild-ish pattern, but nothing really, really warm.
And David Scott, Joe, he's asking on the chat board, he asked me, he said, do I see it getting towards 70 on Saturday? Heck, 70 degrees today in Newark, and many places were in the mid and low 60s. So while I wouldn't exactly say 70, I would say that perhaps Saturday could be a repeat temperature-wise of what we had here today. But enjoy it, because as I'm sure the three of us will all get together and agree on, we're going to have quite a bit of a blast of cold air arriving in time for Veterans Day early next week.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So, which is great for me, because Veterans Day I get to go out and get all sorts of free stuff from restaurants, because they always give veterans free stuff.
Well, very good.
And thank you
for your service, by the way.
And Reuben Fairchild has been yelling and screaming on the chat board saying we're not answering it. I will answer this question. Reuben, if you're going to be putting up your Christmas...
Just tell him to grow up, for God's sake.
Well, he's asking about when he can put up his Christmas decorations, and what I'll simply say is, if you want to do it, you could do it anytime you want. But if you're looking for a spell of mild weather, you might want to do it this weekend, or maybe you might want to wait until just before the end of November, when it might turn mild before it turns sharply colder again. And you say, well, people have them up already. Well, I could put my Christmas decorations up in every year, Joe. And
you're not allowed to you're not allowed to put them up until a certain person tells you can put them up, and then you're not allowed to take them down until a certain person tells you to take them down. Is that certain person watching this show?
I ask my wife sometimes in August or September. I say, "Hey, why don't we do something different? Let's put the Christmas lights up now. Don't even think about it." And she waits, and she always waits until we have bitter cold temperatures and chill factors like near zero. Then she says, "Well, this looks like a good day. We ought to get them up now." And who climbs the ladder, the 15-foot ladder?
You do.
Yeah. Yes. Oh. I always tell her, I said, look, if something happens, you'll get all the money, right? So,
Dave, can you unshare?
Yes, I can stop sharing.
Thank you. So they can see it. Yeah, there we go. So you got a 3
There you go.
All right. So thanks again for being here, and we'll like I said, you can come on anytime. So I'm sure if your if your outlook is good, we'll have a few winter events that we could have you on for, and we could play weather.
Well, just give me enough warnings so that way I can figure out when to look at the porn and when not to. So
of course, naturally. All right, so we'll see you. We'll see you soon, and everybody have a great night. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the super chat hits and the likes. And Joe,
166 likes tonight. Thank you, Dave.
That could help.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all. We'll see everybody tomorrow night at 7:35 for the last show of the week, the work week.
All right.
Night.
Everybody,
Dave, don't go.
Bye.
Dave, say goodbye, but don't go off. I got to ask you something. Okay.